Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Flourish FM, a podcast for the good life. Our guest today is Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman. Scott is a psychologist, coach, professor, keynote speaker, and best-selling author who is passionate about helping people with all kinds of minds live a creative, fulfilling, and self-actualized life. His early educational experiences made him realize the deep reservoir of untapped potential of students, including bright and creative children who have been diagnosed with a learning disability. He is among the top 1% most cited scientists in the world for his research on intelligence and creativity. He is professor of psychology at Columbia University and director of the Center for Human Potential. He's also been a professor at University of Pennsylvania and NYU. He hosts the Psychology Podcast, which has received over 30 million downloads and is widely considered among the top psychology podcasts in the world. His writing has appeared in The Atlantic, Scientific American, Psychology Today, and Harvard Business Review, and he is the author and editor of 10 books, the most recent of which is Rise Above, Overcome a Victim Mindset, Empower Yourself and Realize Your Full Potential, published in April 2025. In fact, it was published on the day of this episode, 22nd of April, 2025. And that is the subject of our conversation today, his latest book, Rise Above. We talk about what it is to possess a victim mindset, the different nuances it has, and Scott goes through 5 categories of victim mindset, each of which we discuss: being a victim to the past, being a victim to emotions, being victims to cognitive distortions, such as forms of cognitive bias and other psychological illusions, victims to self-esteem, and victims to the need to please. We talk about why he chose to write a book on this at the moment, why it's a particularly important topic right now, ways that you can identify how you're at risk of falling to a victim mindset or whether it's already manifesting in various ways in your life right now, and strategies we can use to avoid succumbing to a victim mindset and help others to do so as well. It's a fascinating conversation about an important topic, an increasingly important topic today. And Scott is the first guest we've had twice on Flourish FM. So it's a real pleasure to welcome him back to the podcast. He's a brilliant speaker, a brilliant writer, brilliant psychologist, and a really fun person to interview. We hope you love this conversation as much as we did. This is our conversation with Scott Barry Kaufman, how to become a victim mindset and realize your potential. Thank you. All right, Scott, how you doing?
I'm great.
Great to see you, mate. Thank you so much for joining us. You are, I believe, the first guest we've had on our show twice. Is that correct, Nick?
He is, yeah. Yeah, yes. We are honored.
We are honored to have you back, Scott.
Oh,
thank you so much.
I should be the one who's honored by that. Wow, thank you.
We're glad to have you back either way. This is going to be fun. Yeah, new topic and an important one.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. It's a bit of a departure for me.
And today is the launch date, 22nd of April, of your brand new book, Rise Above.
Wow. Right? Yes.
Makes this a very special day indeed. Thank you so much for your team sending us this book. We've loved reading it and really excited to dig into it today. Rise Above, Overcome a Victim Mindset, Empower Yourself and Realize Your Full Potential. So, Scott, what made you want to write this book?
Oh boy, what a great question. I have been very interested in the cultural trends in the past 5 to 7 years in America. And I've been studying a trait for about 20 years called vulnerable narcissism, or just narcissism in general has fascinated me as a topic. And I started to see this kind of particular mindset crop up over and over again everywhere I looked. And the compassionate part of me was like, wow, everyone's really inhibiting their own self-actualization. Like people are shooting themselves in the foot. And so I wanted to write a self-help book that where people really look within and do self-analysis to really look at the stumbling blocks in their own mindset and how it's holding them back.
It's probably worth just kind of tracing the recent history in terms of some your books, because it seems to me the way you just described it, this natural evolution from transcend, which, I'm going to make assumption a lot of our listeners know you and know your work, but not all. So I'd love for you to just mention that briefly and kind of what that was about and for. But then to your
Yeah.
point, you then moved to choose growth. And now
Yeah.
you're at, rise above. And we've had conversations about it, but that seems very intentional. And as I said before we kind of started recording, very timely. So I wonder if you just talk
Oh,
about that evolution.
well, thank you. Thank you for saying that it's timely. The evolution goes back to like my first book, which was about intelligence. And I
Right.
thought that was the biggest inhibitor of self-actualization. I
Mm.
thought, or human potential, was low intelligence. Or I thought like maybe, the way we, not low intelligence, but the way we view intelligence, the way we measure it, the way we conceptualize it, and how we treat different kinds of intelligences in the school system. And then that research interest, I got bored with that research interest, so I moved on to creativity, and which was much more exciting. Um, and uh, and then I discovered the writings of Abraham Maslow and self-actualization and the humanistic psychologists, and also positive psychology, and got interested in well-being and what does it take to, as you would say, flourish. And when I started to look more into that, I realized that like there was a whole world of philosophy of life, a philosophy of living, that I just hadn't been aware of, and really went down that rabbit hole. And now, I mean, in some ways, this is like a certain part of the book Transcend, but zoomed all the way in.
Yes.
Um, this is really dealing a lot with the boat,
Mm.
not the sail. In a way, it's a regression from
Mm,
Transcend.
mm.
Transcend was like, oh, just transcend, but I didn't feel like society was there yet.
Do
So I
do
was
it.
like,
Do us a favor and summarize the boat real quick for people, Scott, just so they know
yeah,
what you're talking about.
I was
That's
like,
great.
let's
Yeah.
return to like first principles here.
Yeah.
So when you're in a sailboat, you have the boat, and if there's too many holes in the boat, you don't feel secure. You don't feel, you feel like you're spending all your time and energies and getting the water out of the boat. You're not focusing on the higher self, and your self-esteem takes a hit. Your connection to others might take a hit. It's all part of a system. But a sailboat also has a sail, and if you never open up that sail, you're never going to grow. You're never going to move in the direction of your most valued direction. So I focused an awful lot in my book Transcend on the sail and on transcendent states of consciousness and um, peak experiences, plateau experiences, and I don't feel like that's where our society's at right now. I don't think people are really ready for that.
Mm.
Uh, uh, I think that I want to meet people where they are, and right now everyone has a victim mindset.
All right. Well,
So
let's.
let
Oh,
yeah,
you were
let's
going.
get. Oh, I do. Yeah, I want to get into that a little bit, but I think we can front load this too because you set it up so nicely by referring back to the boat, right? And one of the
Mm.
things that stood out to me immediately early on in the book, but throughout, because it's something I feel very sensitive about, but I also find myself speaking to if I'm talking about a similar topic, which is kind of this tension between the individual tending to their boat, right? When somebody else is poking more holes in it or dumping water into it. And it can quickly, right, rise above or anti-fragility or victim mindset can quickly sound like pull yourself up by your bootstraps or what you name in the book as toxic positivity or toxic agency. And I
It's
just
true.
really, really love that you take that head on and you acknowledge a both and to this early on. And I just want to kind of give you an opportunity to do that here, maybe to mention what those terms are and really thread what I think is a thoughtful and nuanced needle.
I really appreciate that. I mean, there was two main. Let me back up a second and say that
Yeah.
finding my voice for this book was hard because I wanted to really make it my voice, and didn't really resonate with the other voices in this world, which are either one extreme or the other. Either it's one extreme of like just pull yourself up by your bootstraps and it ignores context, it ignores
Right.
social support systems, but then the other end, the coddling side, didn't resonate with me either. And how empowering is it to just coddle people and say, it's you've had trauma, so it's okay to be an asshole. You've had trauma, it's okay to just stay in your bed all day and do nothing with your life. Don't worry, you deserve it. And it's just like, I don't know, it's like that's not my vibe either. It's like, so trying to find my own voice, and I have this term called honest love, which I think is really what my vibe is. And that's where you validate someone's experience. That's the love part. And you are honest about their capacity to overcome it.
Mm. Okay. Well, let's dig into that a bit. So what would be the contrast of that, or other contrasts like dishonest love or
Well, I just
love?
gave you two extremes.
So the two extremes that you mentioned before, that would be examples of dishonest love.
I've never used the phrase dishonest love, but I'm just saying, like, I contrast it with the pull you up by your bootstraps approach,
Right, gotcha.
which would be like, just get over it, sissy pants.
Yeah.
And then the other thing would be like, oh, like I said, it's okay to do nothing with your life.
In education, Scott, we would use the phrase warm demander of a teacher.
Oh, okay. You guys have your own little.
We do. We have our own little thing. Yeah, right. And that sounds similar.
Cool, man. That's cool.
I talk about that a lot in this sort of work, because it really is striking sort of that balance of, hey, cool. I'm coming here out of compassion and love and support and care, but I'm also going to let you know, if I think your shit stinks, or maybe you're missing this or looking at it wrong, or to your point, okay, it is what it is, and I'm validating that and accepting it. Now, what are we going to do about it?
Very cool.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I see. So honest love is love that can be expressed in many ways, some of which might not seem loving at first, but it comes all from a place of genuine, deep love.
Or uncomfortable. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, love, you want the best for someone. You believe in their higher potential. To me, that's what love is. You believe in their higher potential. You see greater possibilities for them than they may see in themselves.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so it's also the kind of love that can help someone self-actualize, achieve their highest potential, which is, well, perhaps the best way of summing up the whole aim of your work in general, Scott.
Yeah, for sure. But again, people aren't at the highest potential right now. Higher potential would be nice.
Yeah. Okay, so let's also dig in then to the key concept of the book, a victim mindset. What is that?
Oh, yes. Very nice. I got this prepared. Here we go. Here's my Word document. Having a victim mindset means you tend to blame all of your problems on external circumstances, whether it's that life dealt you a bad hand, or that a person or even an entire group of people have it in for you and are holding you back. You believe you don't need to take responsibility for your actions or reactions because of past trauma. You can't stop ruminating about your past victimization. You may even fixate on how to enact revenge, and you rarely think about solutions or ways of moving forward with your life with hope and purpose.
Thank you. So I take it you see this as a problem that's becoming it has become and is becoming an increasingly widespread phenomenon in the world today.
Yes. At a bird's eye view, people are blaming all of their problems in life on a group, whether it's the Jews or it's the Palestinians, or it's the Republicans, it's the Trumpians, the left, wherever you are, you're pointing your finger at someone else, blaming all of your problems on other groups or other people, and I see very little of responsibility being taken for one's own empowered potential.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So one of the main reasons this would prevent someone from self-actualizing, from reaching their potential, is that someone doesn't then see their own autonomous role in having control over changing things, because things are outside their control, right? It's not they've played a role in the responsibilities of why they might be in a certain position. It's rather the fault of some individual or some group.
Yeah, or even of the fault of your mother at age 3, maybe trauma, that one thing that happened to you in life. I mean, I include trauma. Trauma is a victim mindset, You can have had terrible things happen to you. You can have traumatizing experiences and not be traumatized by them.
Mm.
I want to give that memo to people.
This is a tricky topic sometimes to bring up or mention, but we've talked about it a lot too. Like post-traumatic growth is, my understanding, is generally the default for most people. And I don't say that to shame or further victimize somebody that deals with PTSD, because there's a lot of different variables. But to your
Yeah.
point,
Yeah.
a lot of people not only recover, but actually in many cases grow from the trauma, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I would say that most people are resilient. And then a certain
Yeah,
percentage have post-traumatic growth. I wouldn't
sure.
say most people have post-traumatic growth. I don't. That's
Mm,
not what the data shows.
mm.
Most people are resilient. They bounce back.
Baseline. Yeah,
Yeah,
a
they bounce
return.
back to
Okay.
baseline. That's what
Okay.
George Bonanno has found.
Sure.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
But post-traumatic growth is possible. And we have to give people that memo as well.
Yeah. Good.
Okay.
I mean, you said shame. Yeah, of course we don't want to. I'm not in the game of shaming.
No.
I'm also, I'm not in the game of victim blaming either. There are a lot of people who have been on the receiving end of really terrible things, really horrible things that are completely that were outside of their control. The point is, what are you going to do now? How are you going to move forward? Because you have no other choice. As Irv Yalom says, sooner or later, you have to give up hope for a better past.
Mm.
Love that. Yeah. I've not heard that one. That's terrific though.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
So even in cases where someone, because of course someone can have a victim mindset without having been a victim at all, but in cases of
That's
genuine,
true. That's actually
yeah,
very true. Yeah.
in cases of genuine victims or people who have suffered victimization, even for people in those cases, those experiences, a victim mindset is the kind of thing they need to be careful of to avoid, because it can be quite disempowering, is the kind of one of the ways to put it in the context of your book, right? It can prevent them from taking action to fulfill their potential.
Definitely. I mean, part one of the book is all the ways that you're a victim to yourself, but
Yeah.
part two is empowering. I mean, part two is all about finding. In my interviews, I find people just stick with questions involving victim mindset, but there's a whole 50% of my book which is about finding the light within yourself and having more gratefulness, gratitude for your life, and just changing your whole outlook on life.
Mm-hmm.
And your experiences and your challenges, and not expecting that the default is that life should be happy, and that every time you're not happy you need to complain. That's not the way. That's not the way.
Yeah. So let's go more granular. You describe 5 categories of victimhood.
I like the way you said that. Yeah.
Can you talk us through these 5 categories?
If I remember them, I'd be happy to.
Well, we
Well,
got
so
some useful notes.
yeah, and we'll read them back to you. But I'm also curious, just sort of
No,
like
test me.
why
Test me.
these were the categories, right? What was it about these that you kind of said, all right, this is how I want to divide up the book? I'm actually curious about what you just said, though, kind of this 50-50 divide, and we can come back to the categories maybe of don't be a victim versus the kind of empowerment, kind of how-to pieces. But it seems like there's probably a lot of overlap as well, right? And so I'm just curious, as you're thinking about how you want to structure this, and maybe it's too nerdy with the editing and all those sorts of things, but I always imagine, when you're thinking about the structure and the sequence of the messaging, it's quite intentional. And wonder if maybe you'd speak to that a little bit.
When a lot of people think about being a victim, they think about being a victim of external circumstances, and I have a bit of a twist in my book. I don't actually, that's not what I'm talking about. I talk about all the many, 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 many ways we become a victim to ourselves. It's a
Okay.
totally different
Yeah.
thing,
Yeah.
and I haven't seen that receive a proper treatment ever. So we become a victim to our emotions when we take our emotions at face value and treat them as though they're facts. We become a victim, or another way of putting it is we become enslaved by our thoughts when we have cognitive distortions and we don't see things clearly, or we're catastrophized, or we have black and white thinking, or we have we see malevolent intent in ambiguous stimuli. That's a big cognitive distortion. We become a victim to our past when we only ruminate about the past and don't think about what agency we have for our future. We become a victim. Those are 3. I got 3 out of the 5. We become a victim
you're
to
nailing
ourself.
them so far. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, brother. We become a victim to our self-esteem when we have to feel good all the time. If we feel like we have to feel good about ourselves, feel good about ourselves all the time, we actually become a victim to our self-esteem. Because we can't handle it if we don't feel good about ourselves. It's like, calm down. You're allowed to not feel good about yourself. I talk about the benefits of feeling bad about yourself. People need to calm the beat down, it's like, especially narcissists, they're so annoying. Anyway, Grandy, it's like they just have to incessantly be dominating. And it's just like, calm the down, like you don't have to dominate every second of your life. But do you know what I mean?
I love it.
It's like they're so intense. We become a victim to our self-esteem. We can also, I think there's a 5th one. Don't tell me. We become a victim to our people-pleasing tendencies.
Yep.
There you go. Ding, ding, ding.
Thanks, brother. We become a victim to our people-pleasing tendencies when we have to always please someone. We're actually becoming a victim to ourselves because we're not allowing ourselves to tell someone to go themselves. Sometimes you have to tell people to go themselves. Like, you have to. They deserve it. And you deserve it. You deserve it.
Mm-hmm.
You deserve to create boundaries that are healthy and not toxic and not controlling.
Hi friends, Nick here with just a brief interlude to share with you an update on one of our newest partnerships with the Anti-Fragile Academy. Throughout John and I's conversations with many, if not most, of our guests, one thing has been made really clear. In order for people to flourish, thrive, experience the good life, they need to develop the capacity to not only navigate and endure, but ideally grow from the bad, grow from unpleasant experiences. That's why we're thrilled to be partnering with our newest sponsor, the Anti-Fragile Academy, an organization that I co-founded with Dr. Adam Wright, Director of Mental Performance for the Washington Nationals. At the Anti-Fragile Academy, we work with adolescent athletes, executives, and educators to help them understand some of the science, not just of optimal performance, but of well-being and anti-fragility. The ability not only to endure and bounce back from unpleasantness, but to actually come back stronger, to grow from it. Between Adam and I, we've worked with Fortune 100 companies, Inc. 300 executives, Division I programs, and elite professional athletes and Olympians from all over the world. To find out more about how you can leverage anti-fragility training, check out our website at theantifragileacademy.com. So how do you reconcile
Does that make sense?
something like it makes total sense, right? I'll tell you the difficulty or the tension you sort of run into is like, yes to all of that. And part of, I think, a lot of the messaging in the book is also rising above uncomfortable thoughts and uncomfortable feelings, right?
Totally.
It seems to me that like that's a big thing that we're missing right now too, and behaviors and dialogue and all sorts of, relational, all sorts of, go.
No, I mean, you nailed it. You nailed it, brother. People are so everyone's tiptoeing around each other in a passive aggressive way, and then they'll be happy to stab you in the back the first second they get. I mean, I'm much more cynical than I was when I wrote Transcend. I'm like going full on Robert Greene right now. Like,
why do you think that is?
Because I'm meeting humans where humans are right now. I believe in reality testing and reality monitoring. I think it's super important to live a self-examined life as well as a life that's grounded in reality. You can have utopia, like, oh, humans are all going to transcend and love each other, and then walk outside your door and see everyone fighting each other and ignore that. And I think we need to not ignore the suffering, the real suffering that so many people are going through right now, the high anxiety that so many people are experiencing right now, either because of real challenges in their life or because of uncertainty going on in the world right now. Or just the narcissism that so many people have that is really causing them to not connect with people they see in their out group. They're so in love with their own in group that they can't imagine that an out group would be could possibly be good too, or that there's any value at all in talking to someone who's not included in your own self. That's narcissism. If only things that are associated with your own self-image are great and everything else is bad, that's narcissism.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So I think like a lot of this commentary makes me think about the second half of the book, the empowerment half, but specifically the last chapter where you write about empowering others, right? And kind of, I think, enhancing society through that. And so maybe we can dig into that for a little bit here, and you can tell us a little bit kind of what the main takeaways and points are there. And I would guess that was not coincidentally the last chapter, right? It felt like a little bit of a mic drop. So maybe walk us through, the intent behind that one.
Sorry, the intent behind what exactly?
The last chapter, empowering others.
Oh,
right?
Yeah. Gotcha. I didn't expect to write that chapter when it wasn't in my book proposal. But I felt called to write it because in a lot of ways, that is the essential issue of our time as a species. That's going to be the thing that evaporates Homo sapiens is collective victimhood. Competing in the victimhood Olympics, when different groups start to see life as a zero-sum game where there can only be one winner and there cannot be two victims at the same time, that is what leads to the downfall of a civilization. And so I wanted to kind of, no big deal. I wanted to bring in all the social psychology I possibly could muster to solve that problem. It's going to take a lot to solve that problem. But I think that psychology can contribute to it. And I guess I saw a way of contributing to the issue.
Awesome. Thank you. So let's try and identify some practical ways that people can watch out for where they are at risk of having or falling into a victim mindset, and ways to avoid it. Because the message isn't someone isn't a victim or hasn't been victimized in some way, but the message is rather watch out for where this kind of gets overinflated to engulf your whole life and disempower you from taking action to make progress, right? To fulfill your potential, to take steps forward. So I know that with each category of this, with each type of victimhood, there's various strategies, but in your view, based on the points you write in the book, like you talk, for example, about practicing gratitude and various other methods that people can use.
Yeah.
What would you say some of the key things that people can do are to watch out for where they're at risk of victim mindset and to avoid that, overcome it?
Yeah, I just really, well, first of all, that's part one of the book, is being mindful of your cognitive distortions and creating distance with your emotions, isolating your thoughts that you've labeled like I'm uncomfortable, and distancing yourself from the thought I am uncomfortable, or just simply observing your thoughts. There's a lot of techniques for that, even techniques for experiencing, as Susan David calls, bothness, feeling conflicting feelings simultaneously, and not treating either as good or bad, but treating them as simply being. And really learning hopefulness, not being mindful of when you're experiencing learned helplessness, and catching yourself and moving toward your values as opposed to living your life through experiential avoidance.
What do you think tend to be, you've got a nice list and you can find a lot of different lists of cognitive distortions or thinking traps. And a lot of your just anecdata, if you want, sort of your experience coaching, consulting, working with a lot of different people in a lot of different contexts. You find there's maybe like two or three kind of top ones that are most insidious?
Well, the big one that's associated with a victim mindset is seeing malevolent intent in ambiguous stimuli.
Give us an example here. This is going to be good. Yeah, this is important.
People with a victim mindset see danger everywhere. They see threat. They see threat everywhere. If you walk on the street and you smile at someone and they don't smile back, you take it personal, as opposed to just realizing that person has their own life too. They don't know who you are. They have no obligation to smile back at you. They don't even know you. How could they not like you? Once they get to know you, then they won't like you.
This happened to me today in a conversation, really flat out about response time. They had not heard back and they assumed that was a negative and that they were never going to hear back. So, yeah.
Okay. So this would be one area to watch out for, maybe a really important area. When you judge others' reactions or intentions or lack of intentions towards you, watch out for jumping to a conclusion about their malevolence. Right, that would be a warning sign.
Definitely. Yeah. Don't personalize everything. So much of things aren't personal. I know a lot of people who are on the autism spectrum who they just piss everyone off, but it's not personal. Like they're not reading the social cues, but like I know people on the autism spectrum who like they have a whole stream of women who hate them, like I know a guy, right? Like a whole string of women, like, why won't they return their calls? Why won't he treat them? Blah, blah, blah. The dude's autistic. Like I don't know what you're expecting from this dude. No, and then that's not necessarily an excuse for being an asshole, of course. But so much of, people who are neurodivergent, like they're not trying to personally hurt you. They may just have a different social style, and so the other end of that is to not take everything so personally.
The receiver. Yeah.
Yeah.
To me, that's what you're really hitting on. And that's what a lot of people miss is like, yes, words matter and we can influence, but there is another half of that equation, which is the receiver and the perception of whatever message is being sent, right? And to me, that's a lot. It's going back to your point, focusing on the individual. That's a lot of where you can empower others to say, like, how do I push back against those cognitive distortions or check those thinking traps or dispute some of my thoughts? Or I love your focus on ACT and diffusing from it. Yeah. But to your point, that was similar in the classroom context as well. And I think a lot of teachers struggled with that when they had students who I think clearly were on the spectrum and just were quite direct. And, and listen, you see this all the time, I think, especially with boys, but it's easy to make these assumptions, right, in a way that victimizes oneself, but then creates all sorts of downstream effects for the other person, right? The kid involved, or in this case, the guy involved.
Yeah, that I'm a big activist for neurodiversity.
Mm-hmm.
I just think that that's one issue is don't personalize everything, but also don't feel entitled to anything. This is very Buddhist. But particularly friendships or reactions, like people are allowed to be who they are. People are allowed to. I'm trying to phrase this in a way because you should certainly expect basic decency and basic human rights. That's not what I'm talking about. But when you feel entitled to people's time, when you feel entitled to, why didn't that person not respond to my email? Like in a lot of ways, my book is about this perpetual victim mindset in everyday life. It's not about some grandiose victim mindset. It's about how your own well-being and flourishing is being inhibited by the way that you just think about life and think about what like life should make you happy all the time. People should make you happy all the time. People should always be there for you, like it's not realistic.
How do you, if you don't mind saying, and because this is something I struggle with, I'd like to think most people struggle with it. I hope most people struggle with it, but there's this sort of line between, and we talk about this a lot. I like Paul Bloom's word, like chosen suffering, this
Yeah.
sort of like meaningful stress, meaningful pressure, meaningful discomfort, right? All these things that can potentially help you grow versus just sort of like toxic and useless. And I'm not talking about trauma. To me, that's sort of obvious. If we can mitigate that or avoid it, like let's do it. But there's this other category of stuff that's like, well, yeah, that's unpleasant, and I don't want that. This other stuff is unpleasant, but I can grow from it. And to me, it's hard to know which is which sometimes.
Yeah. I tend to take people at their word if they have experience. So trauma is a very subjective thing. Two people in the same family can experience the same thing, and one person has therapy their whole life to resolve the trauma, and the other person's like, "What are you talking about? It wasn't that bad."
Mhm.
So trauma is a very subjective thing, but I take people at their word. If they've experienced a situation that has violated their own sense of how the world works, what they thought, and has really fundamentally changed their consciousness and their sense of threat and safety in the world. I mean, I take that very seriously. I'm not one to dismiss people's if they tell me they have a trauma. I'm not gonna be like, oh well, that's not real trauma. So I'm okay with that. But I think that these days you are seeing a lot of young people where everything is trauma, is labeled as trauma, and that's a problem. It's a problem. It's first of all, it's everything can't rise to the level of trauma, but it also it strips some of your own agency away to be able to deal with hard things. I mean, if you experience an uncomfortable emotion, that's not trauma. You're just experiencing it. I mean, it could be trauma, but I'm saying, but most of the time, for a lot of young people, they want to feel happy all the time. They want to have easy homework. They don't want to be challenged. They don't want to do hard things. You know, I really admire these people who, like my friend Alison Levine, who climbed Mount Everest. Like she can't have a victim mindset on Mount Everest and be like, "Oh, the damn wind! I'm going to curse the wind." You have to accept that really hard things in life, really challenging things that have great payoffs, are going to be hard. Love is hard. Relationships that are meaningful and over the long term are going to be hard, and that's the price of admission into extracting meaning out of your life.
Mhm. Mhm. And a victim mindset prevents that
Yes,
because it provides excuses for not doing those things. I take it.
that's a really good way of putting it, actually. Yeah, it's a way we can justify not moving in the direction of what we really want in life. At the end of the day, my spirit is to move people like a coach. I'm a coach, like
Yeah.
I have the spirit of a coach. I want what is best for your higher self.
Mhm.
I don't want what's best for your lower self. There are people who are coddling people's lower selves. Instead of coddling people's lower selves, I'd rather help people move into the promised land of their soul.
And I take it this problem hits its peak with a term you coin in the book. I believe you coined this term, virtuous victim. That the reason I say hits its peak is it's one thing to have a victim mindset and use that to make excuses for yourself of not taking action to make progress, to do the things you'd like to do. It's because of this, that, and the other, these reasons that I've been victimized that I can't do those things. But even worse than that would be seeing it as virtuous to be a victim. So it's good to be this way, in addition to not taking action because of those things. Right. So can you elaborate on that? Actually, what is it to be a virtuous victim?
Yeah, and that's I didn't coin that. That is a phrase in the psychological literature.
Right.
Some researchers, Auck and colleagues, were looking at those who both signal constantly that they're victims of things in their lives, but also view themselves as more moral than others, more virtuous than others. So it's the confluence of both these things. And they found that it tends to be correlated with the dark triad of personality.
Right.
People who think they're morally superior to others and are always the victim of others who are less than morally as moral as they are, tend to be score very high in narcissism, very high in psychopathy, and very high in Machiavellianism.
Okay, thank you. So
heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff. Well, thank you for elaborating on it. So we're going to be starting to wrap a little bit, Scott. So a potential final question to ask you is from this fantastic book. Thank you so much for sharing it with the world.
Thanks, John.
Looking forward to seeing how people receive it more widely.
Me too.
Than us who have had the privilege to be able to read it already. What's kind of the key message that you'd love people to take away from it?
There are so many ways in life that we hold ourselves back from our higher potential, from what we really want. And I think that we can get after it. Life is what we make it to a very large degree that we don't realize if we're so focused all the time on all the forces that are against us, all the ways we don't have the potential to reach what we want. If we're so focused on all those things, we're not seeing the real agency we actually have within ourselves.
Wonderful.
It's great. Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
Again, it's super timely, Scott, but you mentioned it earlier. I just want to kind of say it again explicitly for the listeners. Like this is still to me, a human potential book.
Definitely.
This is a well-being or life satisfaction or self-actualization or quality, like whatever language you want to use. This is about helping people live better lives, as you always do, grounding it in science. Right. And so to me, super relevant, super practical. It synthesizes a bunch of different ideas and ways to help people just do hard stuff. Right. Kind of in the most general sense, not only rising above, but just doing a lot of different hard things that I think can be tremendously beneficial to a lot of different people. So to echo John's point, thanks again for not only joining us, but for writing this. We've been looking forward to it ever since you told, I think it was Adam and I a while ago, you were writing it. It was fantastic.
Yes.
and worth the wait.
Yes.
Tell people, because the book's getting released today, right? April 22nd. Tell people, where they can find more about you, where they can get the book, kind of anything that's kind of going on right now with its release.
Thank you so much. You can get it anywhere, any bookstore, hopefully in person, but certainly Amazon, Barnes and Noble online, etc. You get the audiobook and hear my voice, my Dolce tones. And you can get the ebook, the Kindle version as well. I really hope that this book helps you no matter what you've been through in your life. I really, honestly, I don't care I care, but I'm saying like whatever you've been through in your life, I think there is room for growth and potential. And I hope this book makes that point. And we need that more in the consciousness because somehow that message has gotten lost that hope and potential is only for some people and not others. But I think it's for everyone.
Agreed.
Fantastic.
Love it.
Well, thank you so much, Scott. It's been fantastic. Yeah, this has been a fantastic conversation. We've loved having this conversation with you. We are excited to see how this book impacts the world. Thank you very much to all of you for listening or watching today. This has been How to Overcome a Victim Mindset and Realize Your Potential with Dr. Scott Barry Kaufman.
Thanks so much for listening to Flourish FM. We hope you enjoyed the content. Please be sure to leave us a 5-star review and hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcast and on all major social media platforms.
And if you visit our website, flourishfmpodcast.com, you can sign up to our newsletter. We send out a weekly newsletter. First newsletter of every month, we share a long-form blog And every newsletter, every week, we share highlights from our previous episodes. Please hit subscribe on our website.